from Perfectly Knotty. I just want to say that because I always forget. Today I want to circle back to the conversation that we had last week. I already have so much yarn, right? We talked about that last week, and there are a lot of things that go with that, right? And in this video, hi Colleen, hello. It only pops up a tiny little thing at me. Okay. But I wanted to talk about how to look at the yarn that you have and figure out if it is suitable for a project that you want to do, or conversely, there's a project that you want to do, and how can you look at the yarns that you have and know if one of your yarns is suitable for it or not. Because it's not just a matter of pattern calls for a fingering weight yarn, this is a fingering weight yarn, it should work, right? Not necessarily. That's a good place to start. But I'm going to show you two examples today, and we're going to talk about some other things that I want you to start learning and start paying attention to. A lot of this is very similar to cooking. In fact, in the early 1800s, what we call patterns for knitting and crochet were called recipes. And a lot of that is because there's so many variables and there's so much subtlety and things that as a stitcher you have control over, and that's what I want to help you to learn and understand. If you think about cooking, and as you learn in your cooking what different seasonings you prefer, and you start learning what seasonings and what ingredients go well together and what suit your palate or what suits the style of cooking. For instance, God bless him, but my husband will put feta cheese on a taco. I don't think this works because feta cheese is Mediterranean, tacos are South American or Mexican or whatever category you might put that in. I don't know what its technical category would be, so forgive me if I'm incorrect. But I mean, he just says, it's cheese. And I'm like, no, it's not cheese. Well, it is cheese, but it doesn't go with your tacos, in my opinion. So part of that is an opinion, because that's usually his response is, I will say, feta cheese does not go on a taco. And he says, in your opinion. Valid. If he likes the feta cheese on the taco, he could put it on his taco. Just don't put it on my taco. I would say that 30 years ago, I was making seafood pizzas at home. I remember going to pizza parties with these pizzas and people going, what are you doing? That's not a pizza. Now seafood pizzas are a thing. Okay, they may not be super common. So just by the way, just so you know, if I invented the seafood pizza, give me credit. So, but using our yarn has a similar thing to it. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of one project done with 3 different types of yarn. And this is why swatching is important, but we'll talk about swatching in a minute. So we are going to talk about the Down the Rabbit Hole cowl pattern that I designed in 2022, earlier this year. Well, actually I designed it in 21, but for publication in 22 for Fidalgo Artisan Yarns up in Anacortes, Washington, for the 2022 Puget Sound Local Yarn Shop Tour. Wow, that's a lot of words, isn't it? If you haven't seen this pattern yet, I am in the process of updating it. because it was specifically branded for Fidalgo, and I am now updating it with additional yarn options and some other information. So just so you know. But here it is in llama lace. And just so you know, llama lace does not come in this color. I had this custom dyed several years ago. So if you want to dye yarn, llama, it does a lovely job. But here it is in that. And when I put it on, I'm going to put it on right now just for you. There we go. It stays scrunchy. It stays kind of plumped up, and it holds its shape because the llama lace has a solid twist to it. It has some structure to it, and it's really warm, and it has a little bit of spring, so it pulls it in a little bit. All right. The next one I'm going to show you is actually where I was prototyping this yarn for this project in the first place, and decided this was a completely unsuitable yarn, which is maybe not completely true. I really should have just used 8 million stitch markers because you can't see where the special little texture stitch is. But here it is, this one. And it's lovely, but okay, sorry, my internet cut out again. Anyway, so this yarn here, which is called Simply Air, was not exactly the yarn that gave me the effect I wanted. I mean, it's fine, it's wearable, I'm gonna use it, but it was not the right yarn. This is also a finger weight yarn, or perhaps a lace weight. Now the current one that I'm working on, which is the yarn that Fidalgo Artisan Yarns chose, and I'm only this far on my project. But this one is camel and silk. It has completely different qualities. It has a sheen to it. It does not have as tight of a twist. It does not have the structure and loft of the llama lace. And when it's worn, it obviously, because it's not long enough yet, but it's going to relax down a little bit more because the silk has more drape to it. Okay, let's take this back off because it's warm and I don't need to be wearing these things right now. But I am super excited about this. This color is called Doe, D-O-E, like the deer. But what I want you to do is I want you to start looking at your yarns, and I want you to start thinking about their structural qualities. And this is where swatching comes in. And I know that for a lot of people, the word swatching kind of makes us stress because we just want to get to the stitching and the making, don't we? But if you're not familiar with the qualities that your yarn possesses, you're gonna run a risk of not being as happy with your finished project. And that's what I want to talk about here. I want you to start looking at your yarn. I want you to start examining things about it, getting to know it. The more that you use similar yarns over and over, the more that you're going to, all the fuzz in my nose, the more that you're going to learn and recognize different qualities, and knitting a swatch every single time only becomes super crucial if you're doing something that needs to fit, like for a hat or for socks or for a sweater. But if you're doing cowls and scarves and that sort of thing, then it's less of an issue. But I would like to challenge you to consider using one pattern and making 2 or 3 versions of it. Well, that has structure and it has a different sheen to it, and all factor in. So substituting, just simply saying DK substitution straight across, don't do that, okay? So that is kind of one of the things, and this is kind of where we come back to swatching. You know, I mean, if you have the luxury of time and your yarn stash to knit swatches for your things, do it. Great. But I think that there are a lot of ways that you can swatch until there are several different fun. My free crochet project, the one, this, the sim, the eat, is it that one called the simple lace triangle? It's on the website and it's free, so you can, right now, so you can download it until I update it, and then it might not be. So go make sure you download it now. But you know, changing out different yarns in that with respond differently in crochet than they do in knitting, and that's just super important to explore that you can't just make a substitution, right? And we find that in our cooking, going back to the cooking analogy, right? You know, you need onion, right? Or a yellow onion or a white onion, but can you substitute leeks? They're an onion, right? And in a giant sense, yes, you can. You have to understand what that changes about your recipe, right? Red onions are a little bit more mild. Yellow onions tend to be a little bit sweeter. White onions can be a little bit sharper. And by understanding that, you get to customize that design control where you get to take them so completely. Okay, so there you go. Those are some little tips I want you to think about when you're digging through your yarn stash and you're thinking, if you need help, you can send me a message. Head over to perfectlyknotty.com. And that also helps me to know about more videos to make for you. Don't forget while you're there to sign up for the email newsletter if you haven't already. I send out one email a week unless I've got special stuff going on. And make sure on here on YouTube that you're subscribing to my channel. Click the little notification